You ever have that feeling, you set a new goal, you're super excited about it, but then making it actually stick is just so hard? Well, it turns out the secret isn't about having more willpower. Not at all. It's about understanding and, get this, working with your brain. So, let's dive into this blueprint for building habits that last, all based on the real science of how our brains work.
I mean, we've all been there, right? That gym membership that just becomes a decoration in your wallet. The language app you were so excited about, and then you used it maybe twice. That New Year's resolution that kind of disappeared by February. It's a totally universal struggle. But the real question is, why? Why does our own brain sometimes feel like it's working against our best intentions?
Okay, so the very first thing you need to know is this. This is not a personal failure. It's a biological one. Seriously, the struggle to lock in a new habit is actually happening deep inside your brain's wiring. It's like a constant tug-of-war between two very different parts of you.
Let's break down this internal tug-of-war. On one side, you've got your sympathetic state. Just think of this as your brain's emergency alarm system. It's run by a little part called the amygdala. This is your fight or flight node, which is great if you're, running from a tiger, but it is terrible for learning something new. On the other side is the parasympathetic state, your rest and digest mode. This is when you're calm, relaxed, and your brain is primed to learn. The problem is, when we try something new, that fear of failure often trips the alarm, shoving us into stress mode and basically slamming the door on learning before we even start.
But, and this is a big but, here's the really good news. While that fear response can feel like a huge roadblock, your brain also has this incredible built-in superpower to get around it. And this right here, this is the key to absolutely everything we're about to talk about.
And that superpower is called neuroplasticity. It's a simple idea, but it's so profound. It means your brain is not fixed. It's not set in stone. With every single action you take, every thought you have, you are physically changing its structure. You're forging new pathways, strengthening others. You are, quite literally, the architect of your own brain.
You can think of building a habit like a physical construction project happening inside your head. In the first few hours or days, you're just laying down the initial, fragile groundwork. But as you can see here, over weeks of repeating that action, those connections get stronger, they get faster. And after about 30 days, that pathway becomes a solid, well-traveled highway in your brain. The habit is now embedded.
So the big question is, how do we actually direct this whole process on purpose? How do we become the general contractor of our own brain? Well, that is where this blueprint comes in. It's a simple 4-week plan designed specifically to harness neuroplasticity and build a habit from the ground up. So here's the journey at a glance. In week 1, we're going to prime the brain, get it ready for learning. Week 2, we'll use intention to push through those motivational slumps. Week 3 is all about introducing challenges to keep the brain hooked. And in week 4, we solidify everything for the long haul. Ready? Let's break it down. First up, week 1, priming. Remember that little fear center we talked about, the amygdala, that puts your brain on high alert? The entire goal of this first week is to deliberately calm it down. We need to send a clear signal to our nervous system that it's safe to learn, shifting from that stressed out fight or flight state into a calm, focused.
And the tool for this is incredibly simple. It's called resonance frequency breathing. All you do is this. For 5 minutes right before you do your new habit, you just sit and breathe. Breathe in for about 4 seconds, and then really focus on a longer exhale for about 6 seconds. That longer exhale actually activates something called the vagus nerve, which is like a direct line to your brain that says, hey, we're safe, calm down. It's one of the fastest ways to manually flip the switch from stress mode to learn mode.
All right, on to week 2. You've gotten started, you're doing the thing, but that initial buzz, that little dopamine hit of trying something new is probably starting to fade. Motivation takes a nosedive. And listen, this is the critical point where most people give up. But we can get ahead of it with a really powerful tool, intentional self-talk. The technique here is to state your goal clearly, out loud, and then write it down. I know, it sounds almost too simple, but saying I will practice guitar for 15 minutes today does something amazing. It reinforces your decision on a neurological level. It gets rid of any wiggle room and makes it so much easier to just do it when your motivation is at rock bottom. Okay, by week 3, your brain is starting to get pretty comfortable with this new habit. And you know what comfort leads to? Boredom. And boredom is the absolute enemy of learning. So to keep your brain engaged and to keep strengthening those new neural pathways, we have to introduce just a little bit of productive struggle. The crucial thing to get here is that a brain on autopilot isn't learning. Check out this chart. When a task is super easy and repetitive, you get a small dopamine release. But a task that's just the right amount of challenging, that triggers a much bigger flood of dopamine, the molecule of motivation and reward. So if you're learning guitar, try a slightly harder chord. If you're running, add a small hill. You've got to keep your brain on its toes and feeling rewarded.
And finally, we hit week 4, consolidation. This is it. This is where we lock in all those changes and make that new neural pathway a permanent part of your brain's landscape. We're moving from just doing the habit to being the kind of person who does this habit.
So how do we actually consolidate this thing in week 4? The absolute key is to take it out of your own private little world. To truly lock in the change, you need to make it social. You need to reinforce it out in the real world with other people.
There are 3 super powerful ways to do this. 1. Seek feedback. Ask someone to watch you or listen to what you're doing. 2. Share your progress. Post about it online or just tell a friend how it's going. And 3, the most powerful of them all, teach it. You know that saying, the best way to learn is to teach? It's 100% true. Even just explaining the basics to a beginner forces your brain to organize and consolidate information like nothing else can.
And of course, just a quick reminder, this entire construction project is built on a foundation of good brain health. You have to think of quality sleep and good nutrition not as optional add-ons, but as the essential raw materials, the lumber and concrete, that your brain physically needs to build these new pathways.
So after 30 days of priming, intending, challenging, and consolidating, what have you actually accomplished? Well, it's so much more than just learning a new skill or doing a new thing.
And this right here is the ultimate takeaway. This whole process of intentional neuroplasticity doesn't just change your behaviors, it actually rewires your brain to the point that the new habit becomes a part of your identity. You no longer just go to the gym. You are a person who works out. You don't just practice guitar, you are a guitarist.
So the only question left to ask is, what new pathway are you going to start building today? What new identity will you build for yourself over these next 30 days?